This podcast could potentially have adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly the possibility of sexual content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, Drinking with Authors fans. We have some pretty big news from your host here, Erica Lance. We are moving to change the format of the show to be one episode. So there's a few episodes that were recorded the old way that we're doing the new way, and that's what you're listening to. So thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we love having you as fans. On to the show. Welcome to Drinking with Authors. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My co-host today is the awesome, we'll see how well behaved she is, Valerie Willis. And our guest today is Brynn Barineau. I said it correctly.
Yes.
Woo.
That's it.
Woo.
Happens so nice to be here. Nice to meet you guys.
It's very nice to meet you. The words, as they're coming out of your mouth and you stop and you think about it and it goes completely left. That's right. But okay, let's talk about what we're drinking. So I went to a friend of mine's in Pennsylvania. Wow, I'm not even sure these words are coming out and I haven't started drinking. And they have a place called the Heritage Wine Cellars.
Oh.
And this is called half and half. It's half 50% of the white wine and 50% of their Concord grape wine. Now, something I learned that's fun is if you go to buy this wine up in Pennsylvania, which is the only place you can get it, the winery, which I went there, was very fun, and they have a bunch of different flavors, and they're not paying me to say this, but if you go to the giant grocery store, this bottle is $7.99. Drink it cold. That's all I have to say for myself. It is not that cheap at the winery, by the way. Somehow Giant got some ridiculous deal with them. So I went and tasted, got a couple of fun wines that I'll have later in the year because they're kind of Christmassy. And then I went to Giant and bought an entire case. By the way, you can only buy 4 bottles per person per visit. Be aware of that also. Welcome to Pennsylvania is a prohibition state. In case anyone's wondering, literally all of the liquor is run by the government. Okay, we've all learned something new. Now, Val, what are you drinking in your very
I'm drinking
pink bottle?
Well, it's the same brand as the mango one.
So
it's
pretty. So pretty.
Sweet Bitch Moscato Rose. So it's in my mason jar. It's kind of pinkish.
Do you know what Moscato is?
It's a dessert wine, I think.
Sure. Sure.
I know that I like most Moscatos because they're sweet.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. That's going to end badly. Continue drinking out of your mason jar. Brynn, what are you joining us with
man.
today?
I'm like embarrassed now because I have like the bougiest of bougie drinks here with me. But I was saving it for a special occasion, and this is a special occasion. So I'm breaking it out. I'm normally a wine person. I actually hate beer. But the one thing I will drink, I do love a cider.
Yes.
And so it's actually a cider mead. It's apple and honey. Yeah, It's St. Ambrose draft mead, and it's got apple and honey and cinnamon. And I gotta say, it's pretty delicious.
That is a very large bottle of mead you're about to consume.
I mean, I also had pasta for dinner, so I like carved up in advance. So
okay, because I'm a big fan of mead, love mead, but I also go, look, I brought some mead to the basket.
This is definitely more cider than me. I don't know. It feels. It's yummy. That's all I know.
Now
who knows where this will be in
cidery?
an hour? All I know is that it's really yummy right now. So we'll see like how I'm doing 45 minutes from now.
Oh my God. I love, first of all of that. So I also learned on a podcast recently that you can make mead with honey and like blackberries and stuff like that. One of the guests was on the podcast, which I'm setting up beehives in my part of my property up here. I'm very excited because I was like, what am I going to do with all that honey? Now I know what I'm going to do with all that
blackberry mead.
honey.
I mean, I only do like the fruity beers and ciders. That's the only kind. And blackberry mead sounds delicious.
Doesn't it? Blackberries is one of my favorite. Like I buy blackberries all the time and I'll put them on things like I'll serve pancakes and put blackberries. And my boyfriend is like, this is not a pancake fruit. And I'm like, it is now, bitch. Eat it.
Yes, it is.
Blackberries for everybody.
Yeah. He wants strawberries, whatever. Boring. Apples.
Blackberries are better.
Blackberries are way better.
They're
Okay.
better.
So since we've already tangented let's talk about what you write. And I think this is really interesting because your beautiful birds of paradise in the background blend in to this question. So well done.
Okay.
Well done if you did that on purpose. If not, well done and say you did it on purpose. What do you write?
I write a historical fiction, but there's a particular bent to my historical fiction, at least what I've written so far. My husband is from Rio de Janeiro, and I lived in Brazil for 14 years. And so I currently am back in my hometown of Atlanta. But when I started writing, I was still living in Brazil. And the book that came out, Jaguars Another Game, I started writing because publishing is so slow, honestly, like in 2017 when I was in Brazil. So my historical fiction focuses on unknown places and times in history, specifically in Brazil. Because when I was in Brazil, I kept learning all this amazing history. And I mean, I got a college degree in international relations. I studied a lot of geography and a lot of history from all over the world. But Brazil was like this black hole. Like I knew nothing, this void, like other than, and I think that's true for most Americans, like what, Pele? And maybe you've been to a Brazilian barbecue somewhere in the US. Like, and that's pretty much.
I was very fortunate because the last real job I had, I should say day job I had a team in Brazil.
Okay,
and
you're an exception.
Yeah. So I did have the opportunity, now nowhere near as immersive as you, but I did have the opportunity to get to know some of their customs and some of their history.
Did you get to travel there?
No, because when they came on board, the pandemic struck, and
of course, right.
Unfortunately, Brazil, I think, was one of the places too, which a lot of people don't realize, that it was horrible because there's so much stuff happening with the
really
government and trying to like do this like look good thing, yet continuously putting millions of people into risk situations. And like the COVID numbers were just like very similar to India, like in Italy and stuff, like through the roof. And
it's similar to the United States, honestly. I mean, very similar things were happening in Brazil and in the United States at the same time.
Like Florida,
and you have governors against the federal government, like the line being spewed by the federal government and governors saying something else. And there's no like cohesive national, like unifying cry to get everyone on the same page. But numbers in that.
Why would
I don't know. But yes, there were some cities, like particularly Manaus, and some other cities in Brazil were hit very, very, very hard. But so I write to try and bring Brazil onto the radar of Americans and other Western readers.
I love that because I think historical fiction, which I'm not a Jane Austen fan. I'm just okay. I like historical fiction.
Books and dislike Jane Austen. It's okay.
Yeah, no. Here's my thing: is I like movement. I like action, and I feel like a lot of times historical fiction, unfortunately, is like we're gonna go have a tea sandwich and like take a little. And I'm like, why are we taking a breather?
The wrong historical fiction. Like,
well, they have to take a breather from all those strong emotions they're feeling. Like they have to go rest and recover from the restrained passion.
Big advocate of fantasy, like, but some of my reading falls into historical fiction a lot of times. So, I'm a big fan of James Clavell and all the Shogun and the Taipan and the Gaijin and all that, and then the Elizabeth Kostova did a wonderful piece of, old Budapest with vampires and the historical aspects of Vlad the Tepes. So, and it's always fun because historical fiction does something that a history book can't do. And you guys plug us readers into the character and we relive the moment as a fictional character, an embodiment of a historical figure. And it's always so cool to see how that unfolds.
Did you pay her for that shit?
I did not, but I want
to
thank her profusely because that just like spoke to my heart. I mean, that is it. Like I am absolutely of the mind that I have read many amazing World War II historical fiction where there's a woman from behind in soft focus with a chicly tilted hat. And they're amazing and they teach a lot, but they start to blend into each other. And I think it's a missed opportunity. We don't have historical fiction set in other times, because the amazing thing about historical fiction is it does teach you while entertaining you. Like, it can teach you like real stuff about history that is boring in social studies class. But my book, it's a gender flipped Three Musketeers. And by the time you're done, you will have learned something true about Brazilian history. You will have a great time and you will learn something. And yeah, well, that's the whole reason I do
Three Musketeers. So big fan. Actually have a cosplay of Three Musketeers, gender bent.
Awesome, because they're so much fun, right? Because they're amazing.
But what was fun about the Three Musketeers cosplay, which I did at Dragon Con, just for the record, was people don't know who the fuck you are unless all three of you are standing together. They don't get it. Even that's with true. The fleur-de-lis and the whole and the when they see the three of us, they're like, "Oh, Three Musketeers." One of us, they're like, "Are you like a pirate?" And I'm like, I was Porthos, of course.
Just a very fancy pirate without the other two.
Yeah, just a very super fancy. Go fuck fancy yourself, pirate, right? Okay, so is this your first book?
It is. Jaguars and Other Game is my debut.
Okay, so let's go back. We Scooby-Doo back in time.
Let's Scooby-Doo.
Here we go.
What? You're in Brazil.
Yes.
You're married. First of all, it's just a Latin love story that's playing out in my mind. So continue. I'm going to continue on. That's where I'm at.
Well, so we met in Washington, D.C., and he just swept me off my feet, and I moved to Rio as soon as I finished my master's. And that was it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm already in love with this story. Already in love. But you go to Brazil and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a historical fiction. Okay. So how did we get there? Because we didn't arrive. We didn't start there. So.
No, we did not. And like, we did not start thinking I would be a writer. Like, I was always a reader. And I think for so many reasons, like, I grew up reading, even if you didn't necessarily write, I grew up reading all the time. But like saying I wanted to be a writer, it was kind of for me like saying I want to be an actress. Like, nobody actually is that thing and makes money like as their job. Like, it just seemed like a crazy idea. Like, because I was very type A. It was like, no, I'm going to go get a master's degree and then I'm going to have, a fancy job. And then I moved to Brazil, and culture shock is real. People and I did not know any Portuguese when I moved there. I did not. That was not the language I took.
You're a brave soul.
I took French. My husband is really, really hot. So that helped. That got me there. It's like, I can learn the language.
You're like, I will overcome anything.
Yeah, I can learn the language later. So I did not know any Portuguese. Culture shock is real. I did not have a job. I did not know anyone other than my husband. And I started processing by blogging, by writing. And that turned into some more pretty serious creative nonfiction. And that's how I got started writing. And
so what did you blog about then?
I blogged about a culture shock, funny experiences. It was very at the time, I wanted to be Bill Bryson because he writes about his travels. Like, I was going to be a travel writer. I was going to write, funny, self-deprecating humor experiences outside your own country and your own culture. And that really helped me find my voice, which is humorous. Like, I always try to have a laugh out loud moment when I'm writing. Like, I want the reader to laugh out loud. And then eventually, as my confidence grew in writing and I sort of found my voice, I started, teaching. I was teaching high school. I had my daughter, and I found I wanted an escape. Like, I got tired of writing about the struggles of parenting an infant, abroad with no family. I was like, that shit is too real. And I am living it. I don't want to be writing about it. So I'm going to try fiction. I'm going to try and get a little escape. And that's when I led and I drafted my first novel and revised it. Jaguars is not the first novel I wrote. It's the third.
So what are the other two? Inquiring minds want to know.
They will never see the light of day. They will live on my computer.
It doesn't matter. We still want to know what they are.
One was actually the manuscript to a graphic novel, because I thought, well, that's what a debut write. I don't draw, but I'll just write this amazing script and some publisher will hook me up with an illustrator. And which was insane.
I was going to say that must be really pretty in whatever land that is that you were in at that time.
It's a lovely place to exist for a few years. It really was.
Okay, cool. And so what was that one about?
It was about government corruption, specifically within healthcare, and a sort of vigilante hero who a loved one dies because of the corruption. And he goes on a killing spree for everyone who was involved, like all the higher up, from the hospital administrator to like the state secretary of health and all the way up to like senators.
So it's like a John Wick in healthcare.
A little bit. Yeah. Except
I appreciate that. Okay. And the second one?
The second one was a YA. Actually, it was called Pangea, and it was a world after a pandemic. Okay. And I wrote this in 2015. But it was a world after pandemic, and there are only like 12 nations left. Countries have consolidated in order to conserve resources and protection from other countries. And so there's only like 12 nations left, and they have outlawed travel. And from some way, there are a group of like kids born to children from different nations, and they're like hunted. Like anytime a child is born with parents from different nations, they're like, you're not allowed to have multicultural people anymore in this world. Everyone has to have a single loyalty. So it's a group, like this ship that secretly goes around the world and harbors the children, the multicultural children. And so that obviously is from my own experience. Like I was very much writing from like my daughter is Brazilian American. And it was in response to all the like
see the light of day. I love this idea.
My skills were not good enough to pull off the idea at the time. Maybe I'll revisit it. Although now I feel
Charles Gannon, who is widely known for his hard science fiction pieces, recently went back to a fantasy novel he wrote when he was 14. He says, the writing's crap. He says, but the characters in the story are there. He says, so I'm just starting fresh with those same elements.
No, he released it. I have it on my shelf, signed by him.
You have it, yeah. He finished it. And he said
what
it was
is the
so
book?
fun to revisit.
I need this for inspiration.
It's called As I'm Getting Up, Start Talking, and I'm walking away from my computer to find the book.
I'm going to keep it. I need this for inspiration because maybe that's my next project.
And if you find we call him Uncle Chuck here because we run into him all the time. He was at Dragon Con last year, which takes place in Atlanta.
I know. I've been to Dragon Con. My daughter cosplayed is the word. I almost said drag queen. It's like, no, not yet. She's not. That's not. She cosplayed as Link last year at Dragon Con.
Nice.
So yeah.
My youngest son is Link.
Yes, we're big Zelda fans. Actually, you can see Tears of the Kingdom came out last Friday. That's all our house has had on the screen for the last.
Broken World.
We love you, Charles Gannon. This Broken World.
This Broken World. Okay.
Yeah, right. And yeah, this is the first in the series. He just released book 2. But he's adorable, and he did. Aww. I'm just going to point this out because he did what I always tell people to do, which is when you sign a book, date it.
That's a good idea.
Because as you become more and more famous, I mean, he's already ridiculously famous, but as you become more and more famous, you get people when they get your older copies of books get like super ridiculously excited that they have it. But he was on the podcast.
It was his second time on the podcast that he was telling us about this. Wow. So definitely go back and listen to it because
he said basically he pulled up this novel in some of the
from when he was 14.
When he was 14, uber nerd gaming session. It was around gaming characters that he had, I think, in Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. Anyway, it was something like that. It was a fantasy thing, but he pulled it, and he normally writes very heavy science fiction, and he wrote this one very much like our friend Jonathan Mayberry, who's been on here a couple times too, who wrote a fantasy book as well, and he's a horror writer. So live your dream.
All right. I think y'all convinced me. I'm going to have to go back and reread that manuscript.
Yeah,
I would. I love the idea too, because it is so, besides the pandemic thing, which speaking of Jonathan Mayberry, he wrote a book called The Plague, which by the way, got released in June of 2020.
Wow.
So he wrote it with a major publisher. That damn thing was written in 2016 or some shit like that. Like, it wasn't lingering about the place. And yeah, bad timing. But I think it's very important to never necessarily graveyard your story ideas, because between the pandemic thing and also, I don't know, everything else that's happening in the country right now, I think your book would be incredibly relevant and really easy for people of mixed race to relate to.
Yeah, the idea came after watching footage of anti-immigration protesters like spitting at a bus full of children that had been across the border. And I was like, what has to go wrong in like a person's soul that they spit at children who are alone in the world, who have like left their families and are scared, and they're like spitting? I was like, what has to go wrong in someone's heart that they become that? And that's what inspired the whole story, that like multicultural kids are hunted down and you're only allowed one loyalty. And
I love this whole idea. I demand you resurface it.
Okay. Well, Erica, since you asked, I will go back.
I demanded. I didn't
Erica
ask.
cracks whips around here for all our authors that are.
I need it.
Well, I just think that sometimes we get we brush off some stuff that was a really good idea. We just, like you said, didn't have the skill set to create it at the time. But if you don't go back to it, some of it is what sparked our passion for writing.
That's true.
And there is my poetic half and half commentary on that particular subject. But before we have to break, let's finish on your journey. So then you shelved that one.
And I did query that. Like, I revised it, queried it, didn't get, like I said, the skill set wasn't there. The writing itself wasn't there. Didn't get any nibbles. And then the next one came about because of Pirates of the Caribbean. I freaking love that movie, but man, it's got so much misogyny like baked in, especially the later movies. But God, I love a sword fight. God, I love a good sword fight. And it's never women. And I was thinking, there must have been pirates in Brazil, given its coast. Like, I wonder. And so I just started researching the history, and I came across this, and I had learned this, but I started reading about it. The Portuguese royal family fled Napoleon in 1808 and moved the entire royal court to Rio de Janeiro. And it's the only time a European royal family, like only time in history, a European royal family relocated to a colony. And they ruled from Rio for about 15 years. And I was like, this is amazing. They packed up and moved 10,000 like royal court members and adjacent and just dropped into Rio and were like, hey guys, we're in charge. And it was a mess. And I was like, this is the perfect setting. This is great. It's like the royal family is my own comedic relief. I don't even have to invent it. It's all true. They're ridiculous. And so that became, so I just started developing this sort of gender flipped Three Musketeers, Pirates of the Caribbean humor adventure in Rio.
I love that. Okay. So I have to make reference to a Gina Davis movie where she is a swashbuckler. Yes. What is the name of that movie? I made you look it up before. Oh my gosh.
She's the captain. She's the captain.
Yeah. And it's literally was millions of dollars of movie. And it bombed at the box office, but I loved the freaking crap out of that movie. What is the name of it? Val, I made you look it up.
I don't remember.
I saw it at the movie theater. I remember seeing it at the movie theater.
I mean, that's why I like the Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone.
Okay, that had some filming issues to me because there was too much of that. Back. I'm like, dude.
No, but still, she was a female cowboy gunslinger.
Only redeeming quality in that movie. Gina Davis. What the crap sticks was the name of that movie?
Cutthroat Island.
Thank you.
Yeah, Cutthroat Island.
Fucking love that. Love that. Female pirates.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I remember this. Oh my God. I saw it at the theater. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, female pirate. Amazing. So fun.
Hey, listeners. You know me, Erica Lance. You're just listening to me in the podcast that you had. But guess what? I'm doing something new.
Yeah, she's joining me, Mark Muncy, the author of the Erie, Florida book series in Erie, Appalachia, and we are hosting a new podcast called Erie Travels.
Woo-woo! Erie Travels, which covers things like ghosts, cryptids, weird stuff, UFOs, Men in Black, all kinds of fun things that people talk about, and I'm sure you've discussed with friends.
Yep, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform of choice, or find us at erietravels.com and join in the fun and all the spooky goodness.
And of course, Mark, what do we always say?
We'll see you on the other side.
So you then do this book, and are you in Brazil when you are querying, or here?
Yes, I was in Brazil when I was querying. At the time I was on Twitter, thank God for Twitter, because I used it to network and find agents. I did a lot of Writer's Digest, like online workshops for like how to write a query. I could not have pulled this off without the internet, like in a pre-internet age. But yes, I was querying in Brazil. And this was the book that got me my agent finally. And I signed with her while I was still living in Brazil, because I did not know at the time when we would move back to the United States. And then that happened in June of 2020. So by the time the book came out, I was in the US. Actually, by the time I got a publisher, I was in the US. But bless my sweet publisher, Ariel at Orange Blossom. I think she was the last traditional publishing house in the United States to look at my book. Every other one had rejected it. And on the grounds that twice, like it actually went to acquisitions, and both times the marketing department said there's not an audience for a book set in Brazil in the United States.
Okay, so I need to just say this. First of all, Ariel is we love Ariel. Yes. We are huge fans of Ariel as publishers ourselves. Orange Blossom Publishing, freaking amazing. They're one of the ones doing it right. We love that. They are. And secondly, traditional publishing can go fuck itself saying shit like that, because it refuses to open its mind to the audience would want something more. And this is why we keep having repeats of the same fucking movies too, because people in high positions cannot get their heads out of their asses to go, oh, wait, maybe somebody does want to hear something else, read something else, see something else. Ugh. Traditional publishing makes me want to punch people. Yeah. I mean,
and just another plug for Ariel. She thought I was still living in Brazil when she offered me a contract. So she initially approached with like, I'm sure we can do some virtual like book signings and book events, and we'll find a way to like have you market your book from Brazil. And I was like, actually, I'm back in the United States. So she was willing to sign me, thinking I was living in Brazil.
And that's the crazy thing about the industry. And this is Eric and I own Four Horsemen Publications. That's our publication house. But we even have a nonfiction author who lives in Bermuda who frequents the US often, but she couldn't find a publisher for a book that sells like hotcakes. It's like been in the top 100 since we've released it, for psychology of a character arc. Or characters or something of the
psychology of character building. This is what happens when Val gets any sort of Moscato in her.
Yeah, I can't remember things. but it's
the point is it doesn't matter where you live. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, if you're only publishing a book in Cantonese, then you're going to have an audience that reads Cantonese, because that's I'm sorry, but that's how that works, right? But otherwise, stories from everywhere. I mean, look how obsessed people are with Outlander. Like, give me a break. That's not in the United States, in case anybody didn't realize that. So it's so stupid. Crocodile Dundee. Oh my God.
Is it Nora Roberts also a Scottish writer?
Is she? I have no idea.
You are ask me about somebody else. Go ahead and Google it.
Neil Gaiman's UK. There we go. Mm-hmm. And look how big he is in American culture, right? Like,
well, and the thing is, guess what? This is how we learn about things outside. And we've all been in Strawberry Fields, Missouri for a fucking story. Like, There aren't going to be fucking pirates there. I've just made that town up, by the way. I don't know if it actually exists. But
Strawberry Fields, Missouri. I want to visit there now.
No,
you should. You should. It's got a great clown museum. As I'm just making up shit as I go along. Okay. So, this book is published. What are you working on? What is the next one coming up then?
Well, I have a book that's out on submission. So I'm very excited about that. It is a star-crossed lovers set on Henry Ford's Amazonian rubber plantation. Whoa. So in 1928, Henry Ford decided he was going to grow his own rubber. And being the richest man in the world, he goes and buys a piece of the Amazon the size of Delaware. And he's going to turn it into a giant rubber plantation.
What does rubber grow from? I need to know this.
It's a tree. It's a tree. It's a big, giant tree. And you tap, and it's the sap that you can turn into rubber. Now we have synthesized rubber.
Shut up, Valerie. Of course you knew that.
I mean, I wouldn't know that until you went to Brazil and you like go on a tour of the Amazon and they're like, oh, this is a rubber tree. And you're like, oh, that's where that comes from.
Wow. In Florida, when you go on a riverboat dinner show ride, they love to tell the story about how Henry Ford was buying the Spanish moss from there until people started having itchy problems and places and bottom places, and because the chiggers were irritated in the red bugs from the moss, because that's what they were using to pad the cushions with. That's my God. Fame of Henry Ford.
Is that true?
It's true.
It's a true
Okay.
story.
That's hilarious.
Valerie knows way too much about ridiculous shit.
And I will make a TikTok about this after this.
That's amazing.
I want you to make a drunk TikTok about this, Val.
I will. The
chiggers in Henry Ford's driver's seat cushions. Like, that's just amazing.
They got into people's undercarriage.
Cheers.
I died to say that line appropriately. I'm just saying. I'm winning.
That's good. That's good.
So, I love this idea. So it's out for. You're trying to find.
It's on submission. So my agent has, sent it to a few editors to hear back about that. So.
Very cool. So what are you working on now?
I have a few ideas. I haven't committed because I just took on a full-time job. Like I've been full-time parenting / writing for 8 years. And then about 2 months ago, I accepted a full-time position because my daughter's going to middle school and she doesn't need me at home as much anymore. She's about to get to the age where, she sees me to feed her when she's hungry. And then that's all she says hi to me. That's when she says hi.
They come back around 20. Don't worry.
They do. And fortunately, my daughter and I both love video games. So we'll sit next to each other and play our games and sort of chat about the day. But I am sort of waiting to be inspired and figuring out my new routine. I have a couple ideas. One would actually be historical fiction set in Europe, but medieval Europe, which would be new for me. And so it's a lot of research. So I'm do I really want to commit?
I need you to go back to this YA book and make it into a series. We're going to talk about that separately.
Truly, Erica, I am not kidding. I might go do that. Talking to you guys has made me more inspired. It's I really should go back and reread that. And that would be a fun thing to write. The other idea was a locked room murder mystery type book, which could be a lot of fun.
Murder mysteries are a ton of fun. I insist you write this other book before that murder mystery, and I insist you make it into a series.
Oh, okay. A duology or trilogy?
No, I want it to keep
series.
Going.
A series.
And I think you should do it from the perspective of different children that meet up in different points in the story, but
grab the notebook, grab the
touch each other's lives,
write it down,
but are not main characters. But you have the first one that's going through its arc, but in the middle of that, it meets one or two from the next couple of books, and then you keep kind of they need to have the meet cutes, whatever the meet cute version of YA in a terrible fucking time is. And remember that with YA, a lot of people forget this. The only real big no in YA, besides a lot of cussing, it's not allowed, is graphic sex scenes.
Right.
That's the only no.
But you can like fade to black, right? Because there are definitely
you can actually have skin touching. Fucking read Twilight. You can.
That's true.
Oh, read Twilight. What is it? What is the last one? New fucking moon? I forget what the last one is. Anyway.
I know that if you want to see how far you can push bend that envelope, Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. First off, just reading her writing and how poetic and how she abstractly explains a scene and makes it visual and brings in the senses is great study for any writer. She's an absolute sweetheart. I've had the blessing of meeting her, but Girl in Pieces is about a girl who keeps, cutting herself and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a great example of how adult and how harshly can you go to that edge of adult content or discussion or topics. That is a great piece, and it's done well, and it's done in a manner that doesn't belittle the problem or the fact that.
I'll also point out that apparently Sarah J. Maas listed herself under fucking YA, which I don't understand that. There's a big controversy right now, but for the longest time where she got her readership was because she listed herself under YA, or her publisher did. And let me just talk about the graphic motherfucking sex scenes in book 2.
And Akatar. Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. Just the thing to know. Just the thing to know. Just
seriously, like A Court of Thrones, like all of those books, they listed as like YA.
Now they're being moved to new adult.
They're young, like new adult.
They're being moved to new adult as a category, but her popularity and raise to fame is in YA, which a lot of bookstores and libraries have a lot of complaints about it because there's too much sex. So don't go that far. But I'm just saying, if you look at those books, Vampire Diaries, I'm trying to think, the fucking Chase and what's her name with the Shadow Hunters.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
They're all
Cassandra Clare's book.
Yeah, they're all YA. So there's a lot of how you doing? You can do. You just can't be like, how you doing? You got to be like, how you doing? Like, that's the line.
Like, hey, not a.
The deeper the voice gets, the more explicit the sex implied.
With the Barry White music starts, you might.
You need to turn that back. It needs to be Blink 182 or whatever. It needs to be my chem. It's good. So.
Sure.
Literally, I
lost Val. Val can't talk anymore. She just
sit in a writing house and just give advice. That's what I've decided my new job needs to be.
This is equivalent
best
to me
podcast ever. I just have to say
about heat levels.
What?
It reminds me of the discussion. The team asked me during a meeting. They said, "Val, can you explain romance heat levels to us?" And I'm like, "Well, shit."
Did you do it like using emojis? Like you could just be like, "Well, this is one."
I thought about it, but I go, "Okay, there are 6 levels." Okay, level 6 is in its own category. That's erotica. We'll discuss that in a minute. Let's start with 1. 1 is, they finally, the climax of the story is them kissing and fade to black. That's pretty much it. Okay.
Every Jane Austen novel.
Yeah,
ever.
That's every Jane Austen.
Fuck Jane Austen. Anyway.
2. They're making out. There's makeout sessions now. They're getting up to go to the bedroom. The door slams in your face. Can't follow. All right. Now they're kind of unbuttoning stuff, and hands are wandering other places. We're following them into the bedroom. The lights go out, and now you're back at the table again, and you're like, "Did I black out?" You feel like you went into a coma at the most vital point, right? Now, let's see. Now we're on 4. 4, oh man, we get to see the clothes come off. We see a bra. The bra might be unlatched and more is showing. Fade to black. Or we can't get closer. We can't get beyond the doorway. We can see it happening in the distance, but we're not up close and personal. Key level 5 is like your mafia romance and really steamy paranormal romances, right? They're really like
you're in the bed with them,
and you're like
with a camcorder.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a fans only page, right?
Camcorder and a ruler, right? Because
exactly.
Is getting measured.
I'm sure that's 6
camera.
inches. It's
you
fine.
can't see what's going on where, but it's a shaky camera. Now we're on 6 erotica. You're like, baby, I need you to move your thigh over to the left a little more so I can get a clear shot. Hold on, get the lighting man.
It's like an instruction manual. So level 6 is like the instruction manual.
It's an instruction manual.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
So for the record, you technically in young adult can go up to 4.
Okay.
As long as it's not an instruction manual.
Anyway, so I love this idea. Now that we've taken you on that journey with us,
This is like a crash course in writing YA. Now I feel like obliged after you guys have given me so much mentoring here. I feel I have to go back and revisit my YA manuscript.
I think that's a great idea. And we know what it's like to have full-time gigs because we did so me and Val have known each other for a number of years now.
Oh God.
I don't know how fucking many. Anyway, but we've met as authors and stuff like that. And when we started the publishing company, which was in January 2020, so it was very well timed.
Wow.
Yeah. The thing that is that for many, many moons during that, I mean, last year is when I quit to go full-time doing that. And Val quit the year before in September to do that. So like you can have a full-time job and continue with your writing goal just as long as you treat your writing like it's a job and that you have to put in a certain amount of hours to your job. Because we were working full time and then every night, both of our other halves were like, whatever, I've given up my entire existence to these two just being on Zooms together for like 5 or 6 hours a night.
5 years.
And still, for the record, she writes, she's way better than me. I'm like, I am what not to do when you're a writer and a publisher. But no, it's true. It's hashtag true story. But she writes about 300,000 words a year, even with that.
What the fuck?
I've already hit that this year.
300,000 words a year.
I've already hit that this year. Let me be clear. This year has been my most productive year, even though I am crazy busy with other
Are you a vampire? Do you not sleep? I don't understand.
I do. Well, okay. It goes back to everyone's like, oh, I can't find the time for that. Oh, I can't. It's like exercise. I can't find time for that. Hey, you should write. I can't find time for that. You make the damn time. You make the schedule. You choose your schedule, right? So I also have kids and a husband, and obviously more kids and husbands if we count my staff and my authors. But you have to make the time. So like Saturday and Sunday is me time, unless I'm at a conference or a convention, and I try to space those out where I'm, because it'll don't kill yourself going to conventions back to back. That's rough.
She says this, but we have back-to-back conventions the latter part of this year. Continue on.
I had 9 last year back to back. That was rough. But Saturday and Sunday is my time. After certain, you set even though I work remotely, I still set a schedule, set time frames to expect me. I remind myself to take breaks. The author Care Bear that we have makes fun of my schedule because she says, did you seriously put from 9:30 to 10:30 that you're waking up and having coffee? And she's
like in your calendar.
It's in her calendar. She also put her lunch time.
And I'm like, because I want 2 hours for dinner. I might not be hungry when I start.
But you set up your life. You figure out in the morning if you're doing it or at night, and you can't treat it like a hobby. If you treat it like a hobby, you will never get stuff done. You have to treat it like a job, and not like a job that you hate doing. It's a job you're passionate about and want to continue to expand and explore.
And see, I also know at 10 p.m. every night, my family gets tired of me by then. And if I at least write from 10 to midnight or later, I will get tons of word count done.
Yeah, we're all sitting here in silence. And
I'm impressed.
Just nodding.
I'm amazed. Like, I'm just like, I don't know. Well, because I will say, I was like treating my job, like treating writing as my full-time job up until like February. especially with my debut coming out in November, I was like publishing, and I was like, and of course coming out, you guys know, as a tiny like as a tiny independent publisher, like the authors, like I'm making Canva graphics every day, like I'm getting quotes, like I'm out fishing for blurbs, like just cold emailing authors, because there wasn't really a lot of historical fiction authors at Orange Blossom to ask. Like I was one of the first historical fiction authors at Orange Blossom, so I'm just like sending out emails every day and like reading their books and like reaching out, learning how to writing a press release. And I was working so hard, but I was like working the job of a publicist. And I was like, I don't want to be a publicist like that.
So we should clarify this for you. I hate to break your we're going to pop your bubble there.
Yeah.
You weren't. You were doing what an author needs to do now, because.
But that honestly made me rethink if I want to be an author full time. Because I hated it so much.
No, I understand, but there's systems. So you did it for the first time.
Yeah.
Once you know how to do it, it becomes second nature and becomes easy. Like we've had a lot of authors on this podcast who both are traditional. Like I've interviewed 400 authors, right? So everything from this is my first self-published, I did it all by myself, to fucking Charles Gannon, whom I absolutely love. And if he's listening, I love you, Chuck. Like that was my phone. We've had so many people on this podcast listening to the stories. And here's the truth. Author platform and word of mouth is 65% of how you're going to find your audience, which means you do have to focus on that, because we live in a world where everybody doesn't go to meet and greets. They're in their fucking phones. And that's how you find your audience in networking. Every author, even if you get picked up, like we love Orange Blossom. Ariel's one of our favorites. We have over 115 authors. We've published over 600 books since we started in 2020.
Since January 2020?
We are actually technically one of the larger traditional presses on the fucking planet. But the thing is that authors have to market themselves. I don't care how supportive your publishing company is. And Ariel's incredibly supportive. Falstaff Books is another one that's incredibly supportive. We have a laundry list we're actually going to put on our site, because there are so many great publishers if somebody gets the opportunity. But guess what? The only top 1% do traditional publishers do anything for. Otherwise, they're expected to do it themselves. And not only they're expected to do it themselves, or they're expected to pay somebody to do it for them. And that's not known by a lot of authors. They think I'm going to get this.
Killed me, like in the debut chat groups, like, oh, I found a publicist who has a great package for $1,200.
$1,200.
Are you kidding? I will never earn that back. Like I would never earn that back.
The point is, you don't do that.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. And there are so many good ways to do it, but a lot of it is simply finding other authors that write historical fiction like you did, and doing newsletter shares. And taking their audience, because I love historical fiction writers, but 99% of you guys do not do a lot of books. You don't do one a year.
We don't do a lot of books.
And
it takes a lot of research, Erica. We have to research the shit out of our topic. Okay.
So you read one of my books.
Blah, 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 blah.
There's a reason why I don't do research for
all the reason. And stuff. I'll look up what street is in Chicago that I'm writing about. But other than that, fuck that. I'll Google Maps it.
I mean, but some of the research was fun. I was on YouTube watching videos of whip fighting and learning how to fight with a dagger from the Israeli Defense Force videos. They had a lot of instructional videos of how to knife fight.
That was a huge researcher. Trust me, she literally.
You know what I found out? That there is a martial arts style that fights with a garden hoe.
A garden hoe? I love it.
Yes.
Okay.
I love it. I'm imagining a whole brigade of gardening ninjas.
Val needs to stop talking, because we'll go down that rabbit hole and we're not going to do that. But my point is this. Yes, you need to market yourself, but in the long run, creating those communication lines and finding that stuff is 100% worth it. So and here's the thing, if you want to write and just publish your book and just have it out there and be like, I just published a book. Great. But if you want people to actually read it, this is what you have to do. And unfortunately, you're not told that necessarily going into the writing thing. But like any part of a job that you hate, you have to find a way to make it fun and make it worth it.
Yeah. Although I will say, I have a job now that I love that provides excellent healthcare, which
I'm sure
writing
it's
did
wonderful,
not.
but
Writing
you're
did not.
amazing.
And so my plan is to do both. My plan is to do both. But just being only a full-time writer, it just couldn't, like, I've reached a point I need to do something else and like find my inspiration and be willing to put this incredible amount of time and high quality work and like the best of me for almost free. And I'm trying to work that back into a life that now includes a job that pays for my healthcare and for my daughter's healthcare. Because unfortunately our healthcare system is another thing that's broken in this country. And it's like, wow.
Don't get me started. I actually read the health.
So I'm hoping that by taking off the need of writing to like pay bills, like I can tap back into that creativity. Like the healthcare is taken care of, like the bills are taken care of. And now I can write because I'm inspired and no other reason. So I'm excited to take that burden off of writing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That makes,
okay.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And it goes back to you make the time, you schedule it out, and you learn people are like, oh, I hate doing writing sprints. But you know why you should do writing sprints on occasion? To see how much you can write in a certain time frame, because it's much easier to schedule out your writing once you know that number.
And I'm a big believer, I get distracted so easily. I love actually setting a timer. All right, 30 minutes. I will do nothing but keep putting words on the page for 30, like go. And like, or 15 or 20. I love it. Yes, a free write traveler. I have one. They're amazing.
So I bought this for myself because, trust me, they don't sponsor this show, but I bought this for myself because what it doesn't have on here at all is the internet.
Oh my God, I know. And you can't go back and edit what you've written. You can't get distracted reading what you did 200 words ago, which I am the worst at.
Authors out there, it's like they're $500, so they're not inexpensive, but this thing you can take literally anywhere. It's so light. You see me holding it. It probably weighs just a little bit more than my cell phone. Like, that's how light this thing is. It has a full keyboard. And if you get distracted easy, this is the best fucking thing in the world.
And I'm going to say, a free write traveler, if you also have like an inner editor that won't shut up as you're writing and it's so hard to move forward, free write traveler will also help with that, because your words disappear as you write them. So you can't
all the time. Yeah. I said, look, when you're brainstorming, this is watch this analogy. I'm so proud of this analogy. So when you're brainstorming an idea, it's like someone has opened a pack of cards and spilled it everywhere. And you can see it. You're like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun card game, right? But it's just cards spilled over. You first need to gather all your cards. Some are face down, some are face up. They're all out of order. But when you draft, you shouldn't be editing, because you first have to get the cards all gathered to make sure you have them all there. It's when you revise that you start deciding, flipping stuff face up and figuring out what order you want them to fall in, because there is no wrong or right order to a story, because it's your story. Whether you want it to be separated by ace, king, queen, jack, or you may decide, no, it should alternate. It should be only hearts here, diamonds there, and then mix up the blacks. Like, you get to decide how you want to organize the chaos a little bit, but you have to have it all out in front of you and make room in your brain a little bit, so you know how you're going to smooth it out and where that narrative tone and everything starts to tighten up. So, but yes.
So, yes.
Agree. Totally.
Okay, now that we've gone on many, many tangents, believe it or not, we're at the end of this podcast.
Oh, wow.
I know, time just flies when you're ridiculously going off in all kinds of directions.
Yes, and when you're drinking a giant bottle of mead.
Let me just... So, anyway, No judgment here. Judgment-free zone. Hello, Drinking with Authors fans. This is your host, Erica Lance. Because of the change of the format of the show, welcome to the literary briefs portion. Enjoy. We're going to do rapid fire questions, probably.
Okay.
At some
We're
point.
gonna attempt.
But the first one is, what is your favorite book of all time?
Son of a bitch. I didn't have that answer prepared. Favorite book of all time.
For the record, we don't actually send the questions out, so there's no way she could be preprered. Oh, wait, we asked
but I
every
feel
single
like that
author
is a question that every author gets asked. Like, as an author, you should have that answer like in your pocket, ready to go. Because someone's gonna ask you. And okay, how about my favorite book that I've recently read? And that's gonna be Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Did I get her last name right? And it is an ode to video games. And it spoke to me as a child of the 80s and 90s, and playing, Mario Kart so much you run the courses backwards and try to get all the coins and like have it remember. Like it elevates video games to art, and it is just an amazing book. With just flawed, beautiful characters. So yeah.
I love this. I actually, ironically, because this will air right after Dragon Con, because that's how far out we are. I got asked to be on a panel to discuss Stranger Things and D&D and how it affected. I was so excited. They're like, "Do you want to do this panel? I mean, it's okay if you don't want." I was like, "Control yourself." Yes, I'll do it. What? I'm right. Can I do it now?
Oh my gosh. Well, Erica, I will have to find out what day you're going, because my daughter and I go to Dragon Con because we live in Atlanta.
Well, you should, because Val will be there too.
We'll have to meet up. Dragon Con meetup. Yeah.
I would love that. And I'm not allowed to do
it. All right. Drinking with authors goes to Dragon Con.
Hey, I'm down with it. Okay. What is your least favorite book of all time?
Silas Marner. Oh my God. I'm still traumatized by having to read that in high school. Also, Lord of the fucking Flies. Like,
that is very.
Why does every English speaking child have to read about these privileged schoolboys who can't get their shit together? Like, seriously. It's terrible. I hated that book.
I liked that book. There was many others.
I'm sorry, Erica. I just
like that's why you liked it. That is.
Well, you know what I liked about it back way before the internet? Like, we're going back in time here because I was a child of the 80s as well. Shut up, Val. And so like there was, a time before the internet, which nobody can fucking remember. But I remember reading that book, and I think I was actually in junior high when I read it, but it was really how quickly a society can go down. Like that was part of like what was, at least at the time, I'm not saying it's the best writing in the entire universe because I haven't read it in a million years, so I can't go back and judge that. But I will have to say that like at the time, it really impinged on me how quickly something can fall apart, because now we see it every day. Like we see videos of the world fucking falling apart. Like I watched a video of some girl walking through a fucking Walmart store, squatting down behind a freezer section, taking a shit on the floor, getting up, walking away with her grocery. Like this is where we live now. This is our existence. But back then, that wasn't our existence. That wasn't talked about.
Oh, I think there's always been plenty of people who didn't have access to plumbing and had to just like shit behind their house, and we just didn't record it.
No,
for the
I
internet.
just meant the degradation of society. Like,
yes, sure.
Which we didn't, I mean, depending on where you lived, you didn't necessarily see. Anyway, that was my Lord of Flies. Okay, what is your favorite book that was turned into a TV show or miniseries where you thought they did a really, or whatever, the movie?
Recently, Sandman. I loved Netflix's Sandman, and I love the graphic novels. I really like them making Constantine a woman. Like, I just thought they made some really great casting choices. I loved their adaptation.
I have to say, with that, my favorite part was anyone who didn't read the graphic novels and they got to the cat episode was like, what the fuck is happening?
What the fuck is going on? Why are there talking cats? Where did they come from?
I love that so much because I've read the graphic novels, and one of our third musketeer, so to speak, publishing company is a huge Sandman fan and has been since way before. So I was listening to the audiobook drama that Amazon did. And here's the thing, my boyfriend was listening with me, and at so many points he's like, I don't even understand what the fuck is going on. Because if you're listening to it and you have no visual representation of what they're talking about, it jumps all over time. And you're like, what is, and then they get to the cat episode and he's like, is that a cat? And I'm like, yep.
It would be hard to do the cat episode like only audio. Like if it's all been audio up until that point and suddenly the voices are like cats. Right now, have they been cats the whole time? Did I miss it? Like what?
It was pretty impressive. Okay, where do you think they did a terrible job with translating book 2?
Totally bombed a adaptation of a book.
And they bombed the adaptation. I probably didn't watch it. I probably read the reviews and didn't watch it. What did they do recently that I just couldn't?
Or in the past that you've seen and you're like, no.
Well, I mean, technically that book hasn't come out yet, but I will say the last season of Game of Thrones, I am so traumatized by the terrible storytelling that happened in that last season. I have not been able to go back and rewatch. I'm still
just take solace in the knowledge that those two fuckers had a Star Wars deal that got taken away from them because of what they did with season 8.
Yeah, they just wanted to be done. They just want to be done. Like fuck 7 seasons of character development. We don't care. Like we don't care about the story at all. We just care about money. And I will also say YA in general, they have trouble really adapting. Like Maze Runner was terrible. Tris, now I'm blanking. What YA series? Shailene, that was terrible. It was terrible.
I got so excited and then I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was so bad. Now I can't remember. It was so bad. The name's gone from my memory, but that was really bad. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with for now.
Favorite Zelda video game?
Oh, well, I mean, Breath of the Wild, I will say, because it brought my daughter and I together on video games. Like that was the first game like she sat and watched me play. And then at first she would only watch me play because she was scared of like the blood moon. And it like, because she was only, I think 7 or 8 when it came out. She got genuinely like afraid and would have to hide. But then a year into it, she like got her own profile, started her own game, and being a kid without responsibilities, was able to put many more hours into it and beat the game like long before I did. But Tears of the Kingdom is proving amazing. We've been playing it a lot this week since it came out on Friday.
The correct answer to that was Majora's Mask. So
I missed that game. That came out. I was not like my brother and I played a lot of Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time came before Majora's Mask.
You're gonna need to go play Majora's Mask because
it means you have to rethink your interaction and your actions with everything in the game, including with the sky. And it broke my brain, and it took me a long while of experiment. Like you literally have to experiment to figure out how to trigger certain events to open up doors, and it is just it was really innovative for the time frame and when it came out. So
okay, all right, I'm sold.
Just for the record,
I've seen the artwork. My daughter is obsessed with Zelda now, and like I am a superficial fan of Zelda, like because I see my daughter now as like a true fan. Like she's got encyclopedias of all the artwork, and the artwork from Majora's Mask is pretty cool. There are some fucking creepy monsters from that one. Like it is terrifying.
There are my adult son, who is gonna be 27 this year, so that's definitely an adult. His favorite video game thing is the Zelda. Well, I don't know, it might be Last of Us now, but Majora's Mask, hands down, probably the best Zelda game. And not that the other ones aren't great and they're beautiful and everything, but it's just at a different kind of level than anyway. Okay, Val, ask a question.
Let's see. If you could be any fictional mythological creature or thing, what would you be?
Oh, I would be, since we talked about Seema, I would be, I think, death from Sandman because she's fucking awesome. I mean, and I love her perspective on death and just being able to be with people like I would be. That's who I'd be.
Ooh, on that same note, if you could sit down and talk to any author, writer, past, present, or future, who would you like to sit with and talk to?
Oh, can I have a room with like Neil Gaiman and Margaret Atwood, and David Sedaris and Toni Morrison? Can I have that room?
You can. We can definitely reserve it. Probably at Dragon Con, obviously.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate that.
No worries. We know people. We don't know those people, but we could. So what is your genre that you want to write but you haven't written in yet, or maybe you're afraid to?
I love reading and watching fantasy, but I have never written anything fantastical. Even my YA manuscript that I may revisit after talking to you is dystopian, but it's not fantastical in any way. It is all technical.
We're going to revisit that.
Okay.
Second of all, Val writes fantasy, so I'm going to make her shut the fuck up. As somebody who doesn't write fantasy, I write horror that has paranormal, fantastical, sci-fi elements to it, like Diet Coke, like 1 calorie elements to it. I will tell you, it is, in my perspective, way too much fucking work. I love people who can write fantasy because you have to build a world. Like you have no choice. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. No fantasy author has ever been on this podcast or I've ever talked to that cannot tell me that there isn't just a ridiculous amount of world building that goes into creating the universe that the book or series of books is set in. Because there are rules to fantasy, and not like there are rules to writing fantasy, but there are rules within the universe that have to be adhered to on how things work. And
like you can do whatever you want, but you have to be consistent.
Exactly. That is way too much fucking work as far as I'm concerned. I will just
see, this is why I actually think historical fiction, which is what I have written, is actually sort of prep for fantasy, because if you go far enough back into past, you have to world build because people are not familiar with that world. So
yeah, you just said that, and Val's gonna be like, yeah, that's why I do historical.
See, no, I see Val nodding on the time. She's like, yes.
This is why I told her to shut up, because she's gonna say how great it is. And honestly, I think it's fantastic. I admire people who can do that. The way I write and stuff like that, and Val can attest to this, the way I write, nope. There is no going back into a fucking world. Like, I re-listen to the audiobooks of my books to write the next in the series. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now I remember where we're at. Let's go.
No, but like, and it's funny because like in Tattoo Angels trilogy, which they have powers, it has a very urban fantasy aspect. And then book 2, Judgment, I take you back so you see how it all started, which is all a historical fiction vibe. But he's immortal, so he's living through one of traumatic events after another. And someone tried to give me shit because they're like, they're crossing the Sahara in this. And I said, technically, a portion of it, yeah. They're like, but there's plants. And I said, climate change. They're biblical times. That wasn't a desert, baby. That was just underbrush prairie kind of vibes in those areas. And they're like, nuh-uh. And then I had to show them my research of these are the plants that existed that are now extinct that you'll never see again, that they lived off of.
See, this is why I told Val she couldn't talk anymore on this topic right now.
But that is exactly why I would never write a World War II book, because those World War II nuts will come for you if you get one little detail wrong. Like, I mean, if they're coming after you about the Sahara, like, they will come for you.
It's so true. Okay, what is your favorite weird food combination?
My favorite weird food combination, I do love, it's not weird, but it's pretty classic, like a peanut butter and celery. Like that's, I mean, pretty much peanut butter. I love peanut butter on anything. But a weird food combination. I'm trying to think if there's one that's particularly weird. I'm trying to think back to Brazil. Like when I was living in Brazil, did we eat anything that would be weird for Americans? I don't
Have you ever
know.
had a peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich with bananas?
No, that does
That's
cross my
not
mind.
weird.
It is weird.
It's just disgusting. It's not weird. It's just disgusting.
No, it's yummy. What I did actually make the other day, because somebody on the show said they make grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I tried
Grilled?
that. It was fucking
Yes.
amazing.
They're really good.
That
but-
does sound amazing.
Yeah. I actually did a grilled peanut butter and cheddar cheese sandwich. And let me just tell you, because I'm a huge fan of fucking peanut butter and cheese. I don't know why, but I fucking love it. This was the tits. Like, it was one of the best things I've ever eaten in my entire fucking life. And my boyfriend, who thought I was completely insane when I did this, was like, wow, that is
could
really
do a
good.
sharp cheddar cheese with green apple slices, grilled cheese.
Oh, that's amazing. Grilled, like slice. Yeah, that's amazing. Is that
I'm
weird?
trying to
Do
one-up
people
my
think
grilled
that's weird?
cheese.
Like cheddar cheese and like sliced like Granny Smith apples, like grilled? That's not weird. That's delicious.
It's
No.
amazing.
Okay. So, do you believe in ghosts?
I don't. Sorry. I know people want. I am so.
You don't have to apologize.
practical.
This
Don't
is
have to
rapid fire
apologize.
questions.
Is it yes
No,
or
because
no?
I feel like people like writers are supposed to be so creative and like open and like the channel. I'm like, no, there are no ghosts. There are no ghosts. There probably are aliens, like statistically, like the universe is so big. I absolutely think there's life somewhere else in the universe, but I don't
So,
believe in ghosts.
I do another podcast called Eerie Travels, where we talk about paranormal and all sorts of fucking tinfoil hat crowd stuff. And I swear to God, if one more person tells me that they don't believe in aliens, I'm like, let's just talk about the math of this and the scope.
Oh
of
yeah,
this.
like are they coming here to visit? I don't know, but the math suggests there's definitely life somewhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of egotistical as humans if we're like, we're the only ones and the entire universe says
You should read The Shooting by C.K. Westbrook.
The Shooting by I've been taking
You
notes the whole time we've been
If you
talking.
like
I've
thriller
never left a podcast
suspense
with
with aliens and our time, because you mentioned Washington D.C. area and stuff like that. So yeah,
that is
enjoy
a really good series.
It's a
Yeah.
really good series.
The Shooting.
Female protagonist. It's pretty badass. Okay.
Yeah.
If
Wait.
if you could travel anywhere in the world, no limitation on money, like where would you go right now?
Where would I go right now? I really want to visit Japan. I've never been to Japan. I want to eat my way through Japan. I want to eat all the ramen. I want the sushi. I want to visit the temples. I want to go into the mountains. Like, I really want to go to Japan.
We should start in Osaka because there is a food theme park there.
Yes.
Okay.
See Osaka Castle.
That's where I'm going.
And the aquarium's there with the giant Japanese salamander.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very cool.
Nobody cares about that as much as you do, though. I just need to clarify that again for you.
The food theme park sounded pretty awesome.
It sounds awesome. And then she's going to come up with some obscure fact about some obscure creature that nobody gives a shit about. And then she's going to be like, you should go see this thing. Her entire house is fucking frogs and shit. I don't even want to get started.
I know a ridiculous amount about Brazil and Amazon forest fauna and flora.
Poison dart frogs? And do you have a whole shrine?
No, well,
don't.
Dart frog is.
We don't have time.
Minute one. More like the Pac-Man frog and the Budget's frog. And
okay, moving on to the next question. Val, what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip.
It's a good one.
Interesting. If you could go to any fictional world, where would you want to go?
Any fictional world.
That cute little teeny bookshelf behind you is not going to help you.
No, it's not, because it's all my husband's books. Actually, it's all his law books. It's not going to help me at all.
Keep in mind.
I like how she was like this, and the look on your face was like, "Why did I just turn around?"
Yeah, it's like no. It's like maybe I could like something would spark. You turn around, look back, like something would spark, but no, nothing's gonna spark. Fictional world, fictional read enough fiction. I should be able to answer this. Oh, just because it's wild. N.K. Jemison's The Broken Earth trilogy. I would like to visit that. That was some crazy world build. That was amazing. Amazing.
You know where I realized would be really cool to visit too? The world of Ready Player One.
I've not actually read that book. Do I need to read the book?
Oh my God! Write that down immediately.
Yes. Book one's great.
I've not had a list so long.
No,
after
and
podcast
I wouldn't buy the book. I would listen to Will Wheaton read book one. Yeah,
Will Wheaton reads the audiobook.
Okay.
I actually liked book 2 a little bit, but you're gonna just very much the way Katniss Everdeen is not a hero.
Yeah.
The lead character in Ready Player One is not a hero.
Okay. All right. Well, this is good because I'm a commuter now, so I need audiobooks.
Ready Player One, Will Wheaton, one of my favorites. Right. Will Wheaton is the bomb.
The Alchemist by Jeremy Irons is a good one too.
Okay, stop going down a path. We're asking rapid fire questions. That's your job right now. Right. Do you remember a rapid fire question? I could tell how it's gotten to her.
So as writers, we always have like a crutch or a bad habit that we do that our editors like, please stop doing this. And we're like, we can't stop doing it. I'm so sorry. What is your bad habit?
Well, I just really only have just like one, I mean, that I just sometimes like just have to do. And like, I don't really know. I just don't think I have any.
Okay. Just do it. That's called being delusional, in case you're wondering what that looks like. It's what you look like right now.
I will have a million uses of the word just. Like if you go back and do a search, and I realize I talk with it too. Like I use just when I talk.
Yeah. That's okay. We make fun of the lead editor because all her non-important like background characters all start with J names.
I think there are bad habits you can get into. I realize this. I say realize a lot. I don't actually anymore, but that was a really bad habit I had. Now I have a post-it list of bad habits that I have because mine, like Valerie's, change from book to book. So
changes from book to book.
The last one, my bad habit was forgetting the name of certain characters from one. And so my editor just emailed me and she's like, do you want him to be named this or this? And then I was like, this tells you where a writer is really at. Who?
Also places. That was another thing. In my last book, my agent came back and was like, I have no idea how far away anything actually. Can they walk there in 10 minutes or an hour? Like I really strongly suggest you draw a map, like when you go back to revise and like know where things are. So I was like, that's not important. I skimmed that part. Nobody cares about how long it takes them to walk. So I was like, it's whatever. So like I just blow off. I don't know where things are located actually until someone calls me out on it.
I have to make even for my fantasy worlds, I have to make a map.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, well, if it took them only a day to get here to here, and then I decided to put this here, oh man, it's going to take them like weeks to get down there. They're like, well, I need a couple more chapters because these two boys love each other and they're going to do things on their way down there.
So I have another question, and Val, you need to come up with a question because we have to round this out.
Okay.
Here's my question. I've now consumed my entire bottle of wine except for this much. So I know I'm precious. I need you to list the Three Musketeers characters. Who is playing them?
Oh, so Athos, Porthos, and Aramis from the original book. And so for researching Jaguars, I did go back and read and realize that, wow, Athos is like a raging misogynist, like really hates women, really does. Like, okay, so they are not as cool in the original book as like Disney and other movie franchises have made them
Oliver
out to be.
Platt was the best Porthos that ever existed.
Amazing.
In the world.
Amazing. So my characters, so I don't have a D'Artagnan. I have 3 musketeers. And there's Maria, Isabel, and Victoria. And Victoria is more of the D'Artagnan character because she is one of the Portuguese immigrants to Rio. So the other 2 like know the streets, and Victoria is sort of naive and the one that's like getting into trouble because she just does not know what's going on. And then Maria is definitely the Athos of the group, and that she's sort of the leader and just the most self-controlled of the group, and sort of gives the orders, and everyone looks to her to sort of be the leader. And Isabel is definitely a Porthos. Isabel, yeah, she loves life. She loves to love.
But who are you casting as them?
Oh, who am I casting as them? They're early 20s. Who am I casting? I don't know. I don't know young actresses. I'm old, Erica. I'm old. I don't know who's coming out of the Disney machine that's like 19 or 20. Someone a younger and now I'm not gonna forget her name. She plays the general in Black Panther. What's her name?
God, I know who you're talking
she played Michonne, right?
Yes, she played Michonne in Walking Dead.
I love her.
Is that somebody? But like a 24-year-old version of her.
That's totally fine. Who are the other 2?
A 24-year-old version of Salma Hayek would be Isabel.
Ooh, okay.
And then Victoria could be, let's say, a Natalie Portman type.
I like it. Okay. Val, you've had plenty of time now to come up with an epic final question.
What is your writing ritual? Like, everyone has a thing, like needs a certain snack, certain beverage. They have to have it quiet, music blaring, or maybe you have to be in your PJs with your feet thrown over the top of the couch and you like laying on your back. What is your ritual for writing that works best for you?
I have to be dressed and like it's my job. Like I can't be in my PJs. My brain won't click on. Like my brain won't go into work mode. I need to be dressed. I need to have coffee and I need music playing, but without words. I cannot have, it has to be instrumental, a lot of movie soundtracks. I had the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack playing for writing Jaguars. There was a lot of that. Yeah, and so then I have to just like put the music on, have my coffee, be like brush teeth, fully dressed, and then I go to work.
I like it. That was a boring last question, but I like it.
What? I was curious. Everyone says something a little different, and getting dressed like I found myself doing that today. I'm like, I am dragging ass. I overslept. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put pants on today because otherwise I don't feel like I'm going to get anything done.
So do you know what causes me to put on pants every day is a line from Mystery Men where she says, are you going to put on pants and to continue to fight crime today? By the way,
I honestly don't know how people stay in their PJs, and like my brain just is sluggish and like it's just not firing. I need to feel like I've gone to work.
Two Navy SEALs wrote this book called Extreme Ownership. It's a nonfiction book, but it is probably business-wise one of the best books I've ever fucking read. And they're hysterical because they actually narrate their own book, and they're like these drill sergeant Marine type dudes. But one of the things that they talk about in that book, and it's something my boyfriend does because he works remotely. We moved up into the mountains of North Carolina. I almost said New Hampshire. That's wrong. And one of the things he does, though, is he gets dressed every day. Like he gets up, he gets dressed every day. Unlike me, who we're lucky if I do wear pants during the day. But one of the things it talks about is that you can't actually mentally get engaged if you don't like start your day, like have a routine to start your day and do that. Now, my routine involves putting on enough pants to take out my dogs and then go make coffee and stuff like that. But by pants, it's a very flimsy definition, which may involve, underwear. It's okay. It's fine. It's as long as my bottom's covered, I think we're okay. Good. Shameless self-promotion time, my friend Brynn. Where can people find you and your amazing book?
All right. Well, you can find Jaguars and Other Game any place books are sold. You can go to your indie bookstore. You can order from bookshop.org and designate your local indie bookstore. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. You can find it on Amazon. There's a Kindle version. So yeah, wherever books are sold, Jaguars and Other Game. And you can find me at my website, brynbarineau.com, or Instagram. That's the social media. That's my preferred social media. And my handle's just at Brynn Barineau.
And obviously challenge her to a Zelda. She hasn't done Masks of Majora, so you might have a one-up.
Haven't. I'm gonna get all kinds. People are gonna track me down. I'm gonna get all these like DMs from Instagram. They're gonna like find like, what do you mean, Breath of the Wild? Majora's Mask all the way.
Yes. All of a sudden you create an internet uproar.
Because I have to say, this is like my other podcasts I've done. They've gravitated more towards the historical fiction, and they're kind of serious, and they're about research, and like one's like a PhD in history, and like that audience doesn't like get mad and slip into your DMs about something unless you get a World War II fact round. So this is like the first time I've been on something where people might actually like get mad and like put me on the correct path.
That's okay. I'll get emails about this. It's fine. I'll get
this. I mean, fandoms have passion. So I
it is very interesting when it comes to fandoms, and you'll see this with fandoms of your young adult series that's coming out, is they get very passionate on certain points of things where you go, don't bring this up. Like I fucking hate 50 Shades of Grey. I'm still waiting on that. But luckily nobody has written me to say that, stop saying that. But you know, if it's your favorite book of all time, I feel sorry for you. That's what I have to say about that. Anyway, okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I have finished an entire bottle of wine, which I'm very happy about. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My co-host, who did not drink her entire bottle of wine, I can guarantee it because she's not on the floor, are you okay? Go ahead and interject. You can't stop yourself.
I'm not on the floor, really? Was it that bad after the champagne?
Sure. No, you're fine. You're perfectly fine. That's what a best friend is supposed to do. You were great.
This has been Valerie Willis. Share, like, and comment, please.
And subscribe, please. Yeah, that's, cool. Algorithms. Our guest is Brynn Barineau, and we will see you guys next time.